Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown, the unofficial sumo podcast for official sumo fans.
Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. My name is Ryan.
This is Jake.
This is Flerick.
And this is Mac.
And we've got a short little nerdy bonus episode that Jake is going to take you through.
Yeah, so this is going to be the debut of our sumo power rankings. This is just a little project I took on the side so that we could, have some more content to put out there and, just do something that I thought would be fun that might also be useful to our listeners if they want to, play along, see how this works. Basically, what I was, my reasoning for this, Pro Chess uses a system called ELO rankings. This is a system, it's a zero-sum ranking system, meaning everybody has a rating, and based on who wins a match, some number of points are traded between the two players. So,
more points are traded, like the bigger the difference between their ratings.
The more unexpected an outcome, the more points there are at play. But it's always the same number of points lost from one person that's gained by another person. So it's an expectations versus reality kind of system. So, like, let's say I have a 50% chance to beat you, and I win, I would get X points. But if I only had a 25% chance to beat you, I would get way more than X points if I did win.
Okay.
So we set this up related to sumo. We kind of had to start at an arbitrary point. I have a full year, all of 2017, in my my big nerdy spreadsheet that I've started so far. And I kind of had to start at arbitrary values. So I gave, a Yokozuna might start at, 1100. Or somebody who is in the mid-Megashira ranks might be 900.
And is there a reason why the point values are like that high? Why don't they just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
It's completely arbitrary.
Or is that just how it is?
Yep, it's completely arbitrary. You can set it up in different ways. I kind of followed a guide online that can help you put together something like this, but you kind of have to have a start point. And for this system, I set up 1,000 as our start point.
Okay,
that's good.
A 1,000 point rating, a 1,000 rated rikishi is average.
Okay,
or the middle of the pack. Yeah, an easy number to play with, and it gives you 3 significant digits afterwards to, for how many points are going back and forth and whatever.
Makes sense.
Okay.
So I set up the spreadsheet, and I entered a full year of data every match, and it's shown in this big chart. So along the left side of the chart and along the top side of the chart are the names of every rikishi in that basho. And wherever they, like, let's say that Hakuho and Kisuno Sato face off on day 15, and Hakuho wins, just as an example. I would find that spot, and I would give Hakuho a plus 15, and I would give Kisuno Sato a minus 15. 15 being the day, and the plus minus being who wins. So the sheet, in its spot for its column for day 15, it assigns, it finds the rating for Hakuho and Kisuno Sato, plugs those in, calculates a win percentage, and based on that expected outcome and the actual outcome of Hakuho winning, it determines how many points go from Kisuno Sato to Hakuho.
So the win percentage is based off of their current point level.
Their rating at the start of the match,
okay.
Yes.
So it'd be like if an 1100 is going up against a 900, the 900 has like 20% chance.
A very small one. And,
okay.
And that's a big key of how it works is what percentage comes out when you have a difference in rating.
Okay.
Now, will you roll this over into the 2018 year? Or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
My plan, I'm debuting this now. It was really a project over the last maybe 2 months or so that I was kind of casually putting things into this. But I wanted as much data as possible so that it, how should I say this? It kind of muddles the arbitrariness of the starting points. So I put in these starting points that I just kind of decided so that I'd have a guess of where everybody starts. And then over the course of the year, as everybody faces off against everybody else, their rating will be more closer to where it should be.
Yeah, the more data points you get, the more accurate the rating is going to be.
Exactly. The more wins and losses against, different levels of opponent are going to eventually hone in on a rating that does accurately portray how good each wrestler is.
And that'll get rid of like the arbitrary starting point.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
It'll never go away completely, but it'll lessen the effect of my arbitrariness at the beginning.
Okay.
So, like I said, there's a big chart on each for each page of the spreadsheet, it's one basho. So
And this is going to be posted on our blog?
Yes. Yep, and we'll talk about that more. There's a couple ways that we can show this and use this for fans, but as it is right now, it's a big Excel file with a page for each basho. On that page is the big chart of who won against who on what day, and next to that are 15 columns, one for each day, where it looks up who faced off against who on that day, finds their rating, and calculates their expected win chance. That expected win chance versus the result determines how many points go from one guy to the other. And then the next day, it'll look up the previous day's values.
Okay.
So essentially, once this is all programmed in, and once this is, now that it is all automated essentially, I can plug in who won on what day, and everything else fills in itself. So the other thing this will allow us to do is I'm going to have a second spot, and I'm going to try and find as easy a way as possible for fans to use this too. But based on their current rankings, we should be able to plug in a hypothetical matchup and see what percentage chance we would expect.
Okay.
So are you saying you are delving into the match-fixing area?
Yes, I am going to use this to influence matches halfway across the globe.
I knew
Well, no,
it.
we can use this to detect matches, because if we're like saying, hey, there's an awful lot of 900s beating 1100s here, this doesn't sound right.
Yeah, if we find any matches that go against our power rankings, we know it's been fixed.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to keep the JSA on its heels.
I am like ready to lash out at all of these fallacies. They're making me so angry.
So what you're basically making us is the police force of sumo wrestling. That's what I'm getting out
Oh
of
my
this
god!
episode.
Oh no!
Indubitably. I like it.
If something has a 10% chance to happen,
That means
wi-
it can't happen.
It will happen.
That
one
means
out of
it
every 10
can't
times.
happen because it's 90% not going to happen. 90 is bigger than 10.
Rigged.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, screwing with me aside, so this spreadsheet, I'm going to make it available, but the calculations that go into it, I don't want to get too in depth here, but essentially all I'm doing is picking three numbers, and everything else takes care of itself. The three numbers I'm picking, first there's a value that is known as S, the letter S, and that effectively means how much should that ratings difference affect what we expect to happen. So if I have a really, really, really high S value, it's saying that a small difference in rating would equal a large change in the expected outcome.
Hold on. I just want to go back about 30 seconds. Nerd alert for everybody out there.
You gave
can
that
probably,
at the beginning. They know what they're signing up for.
Yeah,
here.
but especially high nerd alert for probably the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to get real bad.
Let me adjust my glasses real quick here. Okay, continue.
All right, I'm glad you let everybody know that you were doing that. But no, this S value is one of the constants that I have to play with. That I have to find an optimal value that will determine, is this S value giving me accurate results? So like maybe I collect every match that says that there's a 75% chance of somebody winning versus somebody losing. If I take that whole sample size and I find that 75% of the time that guy did win, then I know I have a good value. That's not to say that everything is perfect, because there's another value I have to deal with called K. And K is basically how many points should be changed based on the expectation versus reality. Effectively, K is the maximum number of points that would move if somebody had a 100% chance to win and then didn't.
That's a fallacy. How can you have a 100% chance of winning and then not do that? Go on. That's completely irrelevant.
Before we destroy
Try-
what you said, go on.
Indeed.
Before we start dividing by zero over
I
here.
need to rethink everything I've done. You've broken the system. No, that's just as a hypothetical. But so K is just, it determines how much the ratings change match to match. So like if I have a low value of K, maybe an unexpected win is only 3 points or something. But if I have a very large value of K, that would be like 50 points or whatever. And the only other number that I'm actually picking here is C. C is how much do the ratings regress to the mean by the next basho. So you can't really, because there's time in between each basho, you can't really say that just because Hakuho went 14-1, that he should start at that super, super high value that he's at. He's obviously currently the winner, currently the leader because he won the most recent Basho.
Right.
But I just for the sake of this, for this first draft, I picked a C that would give us a 20% regression.
And that accounts for wear and tear on the body that you're going to get in like Jungyo, and then I would assume like your difference in competition levels.
Not just that, it's more of the longer things go on, statistically, the more likely they are to go
regress
to a normal regress to the mean. Yeah, that's exactly the phrase. So essentially, this is giving a way to normalize things a little bit in between each tournament.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing this was a big thing in chess or other ones where there's not regular tournaments where people face off, because what would happen is someone would get a really high ELO rating, and then they would just stop facing people.
They would just sit on it, exactly.
And they would stay at the top the whole entire time.
And the prime example of why that's important right now, Kakuryu. He's been injured. He hasn't been fighting at all. Yeah. He does not have a rating reflective of a Yokozuna because he's gone, he's been bumped 20% closer to 1,000. The other thing that this does is if somebody had a really cruddy tournament and they went real low, that's not likely to continue forever. So it's going to bump them a little bit back up. So when I say 20% closer to 1,000, if somebody ended with 1,100, they're going to start the next one with 1080.
Okay.
20% closer to 1,000. So a guy who ended at 900 would start the next at 920.
And that way it takes longer for your rating to reflect, like, if you are in like a super long slump, then that gets your rating down there.
It kind of gets rid of flukes.
Yeah. Okay.
In between it, it's like a fluke correction.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's a lot of sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say on the topic of Kakuryu, I guess injury like forfeits. Do you have a plan for handling those?
What I've done so far is I'm counting it the same way the Sumo Association counts it. I'm counting that first one as a loss, and then everything after that is not recorded. So when guys miss a tournament, their rating doesn't change until the regression.
Okay. Not ideal, because like
exactly.
If like Hakuho pulls out and he's going up against like Kaisei or something like that.
Exactly. Kaisei gets a little bit.
He gets an extra bump, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's not perfect, but it's probably the best we can do.
Also, what's wrong with Kaisei?
I mean, he's like Maegashira 7 or 8 in the next Basho. So,
anyways, the reason that I'm doing this.
I was about to say what?
the reason that I'm doing this is
Takayasu. I mean, you like Takayasu if I wanted to. Sorry.
This is my bonus episode, Ryan. You're in timeout. Mute him or something. No, the reason that I'm doing this is I want some way for people to be able to quantify this, have a fun way to me in particular, use my nerdiness to contribute in some way to sumo coverage.
No, but this is interesting. This is really cool.
I think so.
I'm going to use this to crush you all in fantasy sumo.
Yeah. Oh,
Keep dreaming.
But no,
you have any room to talk?
Okay, you're back in timeout. I wanted to give a couple examples of where things are at the end of 2017, just as some example to see how this affects what's really going on. Tochi-Ozan and Sho-Hozan are currently in kind of a weird spot. They started the tournament within 15 points of each other. Or, excuse me, within 12 points of each other. Tochi-Ozan only got one win more than Sho-Hozan, but they ended the tournament 50 points apart.
Because I'm guessing that's because of the wins that they had.
Got
Am I still in
wins.
timeout?
You're not in timeout. You're okay. That was a good question.
You might have been. You were supposed to be in timeout.
Okay, so it was based on the wins that they got.
Based on the wins that they got, even though Tochi-Ozan only got one win more, the wins that he got were better.
Okay.
So he widened significantly the gap between he and Sho-Hozan, even though it was only one win numerically.
Okay.
Obviously, guys are going to have high ratings if they're going to win the Basho, but they don't have to be the top rating. It just depends on their quality of wins.
Right.
So, like, let's say Hakuho right now, who has the best rating, his rating, just for reference, 1156. That's as good as it gets for anybody right now. If he were to get a couple wins and bump that up even higher, but then have to sit out the rest of the tournament, he may still end up with a higher rating. Mm-hmm. Maybe back in Aki where he sat out and Haruma Fuji won, but with a pretty low score. that's a situation where Hakuho could technically be the hotter hand, but not have won the basho.
Or kind of going back similar to Aki, where you had somebody like Asanoyama who's going up against really bad competition, so his odds of winning those are going to be a lot better than maybe, say, like Hakuho's odds of facing the top guys. So if Asanoyama wins the basho with one more win than Hakuho, like the point differential that Asanoyama gets wouldn't vault him over Hakuho in the rankings.
Not necessarily. It could. It very well could be that way, but it all just depends on not just the quality of competition, but the quality of competition relative to yourself.
True, yeah.
So, yeah, if Asanoyama is going up against guys at his same level, and Hakuho
I guess, Hakuho's never going to really have big point swings because Hakuho's always going to be, not always, but most
the
of
only
the time
way that
Hakuho,
the only way he's going to have a big swing is if he loses to somebody that he was supposed to crush.
That's right.
And then he loses a big chunk. For example, let me go back to Kyushu. In November here, Hakuho beat Koto Shogaku. Koto Shogaku, pretty awesome. But Koto Shogaku was also a pretty high rank a pretty high rating at the time. So Hakuho only gained 6 points from it. But when Hakuho lost, there we go. He lost to Yoshikaze. He had an 80% expected win chance on that one.
Okay.
But he lost. He lost 16 points.
Okay.
So the more unexpected the result, the more the point swings.
Makes sense.
So that's basically the system I'm using. What I'm working on now is obviously refining my constants, see what better values I can use to be more accurate, more predictive. And I want to see if I can implement Juryo into this a little bit. That's the one thing that I'm having trouble with. Yeah, go ahead, Mac.
No, that was going to be my question. So when we have the rikishi going up and down in terms of going down to Juryo or up to Makuuchi, how are you going to account for that?
That is the pain in my ass right now.
I can understand that.
So when somebody goes up, I either have to have a full rating for them, meaning I have to break their rating down all the way back a year ago, or I do what I'm doing right now, which is
assume the constant.
Assume the constant. I assume that a Juryo level wrestler is 800.
Okay.
So I just have a column where I have all the Makuuchi wrestlers on the side and the top of my table as the axes, and then I have Juryo as if it was an extra wrestler.
Right.
So then I put in a number there if this wrestler faced off against somebody in Juryo.
Okay.
And assume that they have an 800 rating for the purposes of calculation.
Okay. Nope.
No matter what, anybody in Makuuchi is expected to win against somebody in Juryo. So that kind of plays into how that works. But I don't have it hardwired in so that it will work exactly how I want it to forever.
Got it.
So that's the big thing that I want to work on. And I don't want this to be something that like replaces any of our analysis. I want it to be more of a power ranking. Maybe something we could mention it in blog posts. We could mention it in our midway episodes. Just bring it up as a way to quantify who's on the hottest streak.
Okay.
Things like that, or who's winning enough, but isn't their losses are bad and their wins are not impressive. So maybe they're not doing as well as we really think.
Okay.
So it'll help us just add another side of it, a data-driven side that we can more objectively say what's going on.
Okay.
I like it.
And then before we wrap up on this, why don't you give us the top 5 currently and the bottom 5 currently, just so we have an idea of where people are at.
Sure. So like I said, Hakuho is the top with 1156. Next, we have actually Haruma Fuji. This is before.
He's coming off a basho win, and he only had 3 matches of data in the last one.
Exactly. So he was starting off pretty hot in this one. He had a couple losses, which did lose him some significant points. He started at 1093, but after 3 losses, he's at 1053.
So the difference between Hakuho and number 2 is over 100 points.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's excuse me. There was one that actually crept up. There's a couple that crept up that I forgot to mention here. At 1083, so not quite 100 points below, we have Tamawashi.
Okay.
Tamawashi's at 1083. Takakeisho is at 1077.
Ooh, just behind him. Okay.
And just behind that, Hokuto Fuji at 1069. You'll remember those are 3 guys who got juniors.
Oh, yeah.
So they
Yep.
definitely did very well. But yeah, after that, Harumafuji 1053 and Goedo 1052.
Okay.
Notable one, Kisano Sato took some bad losses.
Yeah.
Kisano Sato is under 1,000. He's at 995.
So he's under our current baseline average.
Our baseline, which, again, that's not saying that he's a less than average Rikishi.
We should send this data to the JSA and get him retired immediately. We cannot have a Yokozuna that is under average.
We have proof.
I have too much power. I can't handle this.
We're turning the world of sumo on its head.
You see what you've created, Jake.
What have I done? No, that's just to say he's extremely cold right now. Not just because he's been injured, but because he's taken bad losses.
Because of his injuries.
Because of his injuries.
Primarily, yes.
So we also have some pretty low wrestlers. We have a couple guys in the 800s here. Myogiryu, who is definitely gone from Makuuchi, is at 826. We also have Dayamami at 832. He took a pretty rough basho there. Let's see, were there any big guys near the top that were low rated? Not a whole lot, actually. Those are the two lowest of the guys that are competed in the whole tournament in Makuuchi.
Okay.
People like Ura are actually Ura or Takanoya are actually benefiting from their sitting out.
Oh, because they're just going to be regressing to
They're
the
going to
main.
Yeah, they didn't go any lower than they were, and they're going to regress closer to 1,000, which they were below.
Yeah.
Takanoiwa ended at 966, so he was about 45 below. He's going to go, about 8-9 points up.
Okay.
Ura started at 988 because he was pretty hot before he had to sit out a bunch. That's going to regress closer to 1,000 counterintuitively. That's just an artifact of the way that this is set up. There's no way to avoid it that isn't vastly more complicated.
Okay.
So that's where a couple guys stand. And like I said, anybody in Juryo we count at 800 just for the purposes of competition level. But yeah, nothing's perfect yet. But I think it's a fun way to quantify this and a fun way that we can share it with our fans.
I like it, definitely.
I'm working on a delivery method here still. I think it's definitely going to be on our blog, at least a breakdown episode of how this works. I'll actually get the formulas out there if anybody's curious on how they work. And other than that, I'm going to try and get it into either a Google Doc or something else that people can see as I live update it each day.
All right, sounds good. So if you like nerdy things like this podcast episode especially, you can go to iTunes or your favorite podcast delivery whatever.
I got that word in your head, don't I?
Yeah.
Success, Jake, success.
And give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review.
If you don't like those things, you can find us on G Sumo Breakdown on Twitter or Grand Sumo Breakdown on Facebook and rip us a new one.
You can check out our blog, grandsumobreakdown.wordpress.com for Fantasy League and other goodies.
If you have any questions, comments, or corrections, send us a line at grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com.
All right, and stay tuned a little bit later in the week. We're going to get you an episode about the 2017 Grand Sumo Breakdown Awards. So stay tuned for that before the end of the year.
Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown. Until next time, throw your salt high and keep moving forward.